The endless silence of deep space was broken only by the steady hum of the alien scout vessel Watcher of Truth. For weeks, the ship had been patrolling the outer edge of the sector, recording star positions and mapping faint energy signatures. It was routine work, and most of the crew was tired and bored. But that boredom ended the moment a strange signal pulsed across their scanners. At first, the crew thought it was just interference, another false reading from the radiation storms that swept across the border worlds. But then the signature returned, clearer this time, heavy with power. It was not a natural anomaly. It was technology, old, massive, and unlike anything they had ever seen. The captain, a tall insectoid being named Commander Tal, ordered the signal magnified. His 6 black eyes narrowed as he stared at the glowing lines spreading across the console. "Show me its position," Tal commanded. The navigation officer hesitated. The coordinates pointed to a dark stretch of space, an area officially marked empty on every chart. No colonies, no trade lanes, nothing but cold stars and drifting dust. Yet the scanners did not lie. Something huge was there, hidden in the void. The crew fell silent as the Watcher of Truth approached. Slowly, from the shadows, a shape began to emerge. At first it looked like an asteroid, broken and jagged, but as more of its surface caught the distant starlight, its true form became clear. It was a ship, a giant warship. Its black metal hull stretched for kilometers, covered in scars from battles long forgotten. Faded symbols marked its side, strange and unreadable yet carrying an air of warning. Entire towers and spires rose from its surface, bristling with weapon ports, sensors, and what looked like massive launch bays. The ship drifted in silence, like a dead leviathan floating in the sea of stars. The younger officers whispered in fear. No records showed such a vessel. No empire in the galaxy claimed ownership. The collective had ruled this sector for centuries, and yet this ship was unknown even to their oldest archives. "Life signs?" Commander Tal asked. The answer came from the ship's AI. "None detected, though the hull is interfering with deeper scans." That should have calmed the crew, but instead the unease grew. If the ship was dead, why was it still giving off faint energy? Why did its form look less like a machine and more like some sleeping beast waiting to wake? Tal sent a message to the nearby fleet command, reporting the discovery. But curiosity gnawed at him. Orders would take hours, maybe days, to arrive, and the ship was right here, close enough to touch. If this was truly a relic from an unknown species, studying it could bring glory, power, and knowledge to the collective. "Bring us closer," Tal ordered. Engines rumbled as the Watcher of Truth crept toward the black giant. As they closed the distance, the scanners began to scream with distorted readings. Systems blinked out, then returned, as if some invisible field was pressing against the smaller vessel. The science officer adjusted the sensors, sweat dripping from his scaled forehead. "This ship, it is built from alloys I cannot identify," he muttered. "Its mass is greater than anything we have seen before, and its power signature, it is wrong. It does not follow any known design." Tal leaned forward. "Wrong? Explain." The officer looked back, his mandibles clicking nervously. "It should not exist, Commander. This energy output is beyond safe limits. No ship should be able to contain this kind of power. Not for centuries. Not for even a moment." A hush fell across the bridge. The alien crew felt the weight of the truth pressing down on them. Whatever species had built this ship, they had possessed knowledge far beyond the collective. Then, without warning, the ship itself reacted. A low vibration rolled through the void, shaking the Watcher of Truth. Lights flickered across the ancient hull of the giant warship, dim at first like dying embers, then brighter. A long row of windows lit up, one after another, as though some unseen presence had noticed their approach. The alien crew gasped. "Is it powering up?" the weapons officer asked, his voice trembling. The AI's calm tone returned. "No weapon. Systems detected. Energy appears dormant. But the ship is awake." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. The word "awake" was not one they liked hearing. Ships did not awaken. They powered on, or they remained cold. But this one felt different. It felt alive. Commander Tal swallowed his fear. Prepare the docking team. We will send a drone inside. If there are answers to be found, we must know them now. The crew obeyed, though none wanted to. A small drone detached from the Watcher of Truth and drifted toward the massive hull. Its cameras flickered on, sending back live images. The alien crew leaned closer to the screens. The drone passed through a shattered hangar bay, its interior filled with twisted wreckage and long shadows. The walls were lined with strange markings, symbols carved deep into the steel like warnings or perhaps prayers. The deeper the drone moved, the more oppressive the silence became. It was not the silence of an empty ship. It was the silence of something holding its breath. Then the feed went black. The console screamed with static. No signal. No trace. The drone was gone. Every officer on the bridge froze. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Then, slowly, across the massive dark hull of the warship, new lights appeared. Red lights. They pulsed in a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. One of the younger officers whispered the thought that all of them feared. It's watching us. The bridge of the Watcher of Truth was filled with an unnatural silence. The lost drone, the pulsing red lights on the massive warship. Everything felt wrong. Yet Commander Tal could not turn away. The alien collective had always thrived on knowledge, and this discovery was unlike anything in their history. To retreat now would mean letting another species, perhaps even a rival empire, find the truth first. And so, despite his crew's fear, Tal made his decision. We cannot leave empty-handed, he said, his voice sharp. Prepare the long-range scanners. I want a full analysis of this ship's structure, its energy, and every hidden system. The officers obeyed with shaking limbs. Scanners hummed as they directed invisible beams across the flagship's hull. At once, streams of data began flowing across the consoles, but the information was confusing, almost impossible to understand. The readings changed every second, as if the ship itself was resisting being studied. The science officer clicked his mandibles nervously. Commander, its hull is absorbing part of the scan. I can't penetrate beyond the outer layers. But what I can see... He stopped, hesitating. Speak, Tal demanded. It's alive, the officer whispered. Not biological, but the metals. They shift. They respond to the scans as if they're aware. This hull is not just armor. It's growing. Gasps filled the bridge. Ships did not grow. Ships were built, forged, and welded. Yet here was something that acted like a living creature. Commander Tal clenched his claws on the armrest. Continue. Push deeper. The scanners whined, forcing their way past the resisting hull. Slowly, more of the flagship's secrets came to light. Beneath the armor lay layers of impossible machinery. Power conduits thicker than entire city streets, shield generators that pulsed with energy far beyond collective limits, and weapons. Massive, hidden weapons folded into the body of the ship like claws waiting to unsheath. The weapons officer stared at the readings in disbelief. These cannons. Their energy output equals the strength of an entire battle fleet. And that's just one weapon system. Commander, this vessel is built to wage wars that our kind cannot even imagine. Fear rippled through the crew. What kind of species would design such a nightmare? What enemy had they expected to face? And where were they now? The AI interrupted with a cold announcement. Energy signatures increasing. Internal systems activating. Unknown fields expanding from within the vessel. On the screen, they watched as strange waves of light rippled across the flagship's surface. The red pulse quickened, no longer a heartbeat. It was a warning. Suddenly, the communications officer shouted, "We're receiving a signal." Static filled the air. At first it was nothing but harsh noise, but slowly the signal formed into patterns, bursts of sound, deliberate and structured. A language. Not theirs, not of any known empire, but something older, sharper. The crew leaned closer, struggling to make sense of it. Then, as if the ship itself wanted them to understand, one word cut through the distortion, clear and chilling: humanity. Every officer froze. Humanity. A word none of them knew, yet somehow it struck them with weight and meaning. A name. A claim. A warning. The science officer spoke again, his voice trembling. Commander, if this vessel belongs to a species called humanity, then they are beyond anything we know. Look at this design. This is not just a warship. It is a fortress, a weapon, and something more. The core structure suggests layers upon layers of hidden systems. I cannot explain half of it. Commander Tal tried to remain calm, but even he could feel his chest tightening. You will explain. Keep working. Hours passed as the Watcher of Truth circled the great flagship, mapping its every angle. The deeper they scanned, the stranger it became. Entire decks seemed empty, yet hidden beneath were sealed chambers that resonated with faint life signs. Not strong, not awake, but present. Something is inside, the medical officer whispered. Not machines, not drones, living organisms, but they are asleep, preserved. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. A silent army, perhaps? Survivors of a forgotten war? Whatever the answer, one fact was certain. This ship was not abandoned. The tension on the bridge grew heavier with each discovery. Even the AI's voice sounded less steady as it reported. Warning. Interference from Flagship is destabilizing our systems. Power levels decreasing. Engines struggling to maintain position. The Watcher of Truth was being drained slowly but deliberately, as if the Flagship were feeding on it. Enough, Commander Tal said, finally standing. His towering insectoid frame loomed over the consoles. We must board it. Scans are not enough. If humanity left behind such a weapon, then the galaxy must know. Ready a boarding party. We will enter the Flagship and uncover its secrets with our own eyes. His officers stared at him in shock. To step inside the beast was madness, yet none dared to challenge him openly. Obedience was absolute in the collective. Orders were orders, but in the shadows of the bridge, whispers grew. The younger crew members exchanged fearful looks. One muttered under his breath, "This is no relic. This is a trap. We should never have come here." As if answering his words, the Flagship stirred again. This time, the movement was undeniable. Great panels along its surface slid open, revealing black corridors stretching deep into its core. The ship was inviting them in. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Commander Tal gave his final order. Prepare the boarding team, the nightmare awaits. The boarding party gathered in the launch bay of the Watcher of Truth. Each soldier adjusted the seals on their armor, though no armor could protect against the feeling that pressed on their minds. The massive black flagship loomed outside the viewport like a nightmare carved from iron, waiting, watching. Its open corridors seemed less like broken metal, and more like the gaping jaws of some great beast. Commander Tal stood before his troops. His 6 black eyes glinted under the pale lights, his voice steady even as unease gnawed at him inside. Remember this moment. What we learn here may change the fate of the collective. Humanity left this vessel behind, and we will be the first to understand it. Move carefully. Record everything. And do not touch anything without orders. The shuttle engines rumbled as the boarding team departed. They drifted across the void, a speck compared to the Leviathan they approached. As the shuttle entered the open hangar of the Flagship, all lights flickered. Red beams pulsed along the walls, guiding them like veins carrying blood deeper into the heart of the ship. Atmosphere detected, the pilot whispered. Breathable, but stale. Too stale for life. The soldiers exchanged looks. If the air was still stable after all these centuries, then the ship had been maintaining itself. But for what purpose? The shuttle landed with a thud inside the broken hangar. Dust rose as armored boots hit the floor. The team's lights cut through, the thick darkness illuminating shattered machinery. Claw-like beams bent into strange shapes and walls scarred with burns. The silence was crushing. The lead soldier activated a scanner. No active life signs, environment stable, proceeding. They advanced into the corridor. The walls were lined with black steel, covered in symbols that none could read. Strange, grooves were etched into the surface, almost like claws had carved them. The deeper they walked, the more the corridors narrowed until the ceiling itself seemed to press down on them. One soldier muttered, "This place, it feels like it's breathing." The sound of static hissed in their helmets. The communications link wavered. The science officer's voice came through weakly from the Watcher of Truth. "Boarding team, be advised. Scans indicate energy surges spreading through the flagship. Its core is awakening. Proceed with caution." The soldiers froze. Core awakening. That meant this ship was not simply a relic. It was alive in ways they could not imagine. Suddenly, one of the soldiers' helmet lights flickered. In the glow, something moved at the far end of the corridor. A shadow, too tall, too thin, vanishing before it could be identified. Weapons snapped up. Fingers tightened on triggers. "Did you see that?" another whispered. The team leader growled. "Probably machinery, keep moving." But none of them believed it. They reached a wide chamber. Massive columns rose from floor to ceiling, humming faintly with buried energy. In the center of the room stood a structure, half machine, half altar. Around it lay dozens of pods, sealed in thick glass, covered in frost. The soldiers approached. Slowly, the scanner whined. "Commander, these are stasis pods. Life signs faint but present. Whatever sleeps here has not died." The words struck like ice. For a moment, no one moved. Then one soldier wiped away frost from a pod's surface. Inside was a shape none of them had ever seen. A being with pale skin, strange features, and a face too human to be alien. Its chest rose slowly as if it were merely dreaming. The soldier stumbled back. "What are they?" The science officer's voice crackled through the static again. "We are receiving clearer data now. Boarding team, these beings, they are humanity." The silence that followed was heavy. The crew had uncovered their first look at the species who built this nightmare vessel, and they looked disturbingly like them, like another variation of life carved from flesh and bone. But their weapons, their ship, their technology screamed of something far beyond. Before the soldiers could react, alarms blared through the chamber. The stasis pods glowed red. The hum of machinery grew into a roar. And then, one by one, the pods began to open. "Commander!" a soldier shouted. "They're waking up!" The humans inside stirred, their eyes glowing faintly as if touched by some inner fire. The flagship itself responded to their awakening. Lights blazed down the corridors, systems powered up, and the whole ship vibrated like the heartbeat of a titan. On the Watcher of Truth, panic spread. "Commander Tal, energy." Levels spiking across the flagship, weapons arrays coming online. "If you do not withdraw now, we may not survive." But retreat was no longer an option. The flagship had chosen. It had been waiting for this moment. One of the pods shattered fully, spilling mist across the chamber. The figure inside stepped out, standing tall, breathing deeply. Its eyes snapped, open, cold, sharp, and filled with something the aliens had no word for. The soldiers froze, unable to move, unable even to breathe. Then the human spoke. Its voice was low, but it cut through the chamber with terrible clarity. "You should not have come here." The chamber shook as the first human stepped from the shattered pod. Mist rolled across the floor, curling around the armored boots of the alien soldiers. Their weapons remained locked on the figure, but no one fired. Something in the human's eyes froze them where they stood. It was not simple fear. It was the sense that this being was older, sharper, and more dangerous than anything they had ever faced. The human's voice echoed again, quiet yet heavy with command. "You should not have come here." The soldiers exchanged frantic glances. Some wanted to retreat, others wanted to fire, but Commander Tal raised a hand to stop them. For all his fear, his mind burned with curiosity. "Identify yourself," he demanded. His voice cracked despite his effort to stay calm. The human tilted his head, studying the insectoid commander as though weighing his worth. "I am the guardian of this vessel," he said slowly, his words shaped by an ancient accent but clear enough for their translators to carry. "This ship is not for your kind. It is the blade of humanity, and you are trespassing." Before Tal could respond, the other pods began to stir. Lights glowed within them as more humans shifted in their long sleep. Their faces were pale, their breath steady, their hands twitching as though ready for war. The science officer's panicked voice crackled over the comms from the Watcher of Truth. "Commander, do you realize what this means? These beings, they are not extinct. They are not forgotten. They were waiting. Their ship was not abandoned. It was prepared." Tal's mind raced. If humanity had built ships like this one, then what kind of war had they fought? Against whom? And what had become of their empire? He dared to ask, "Why are you here? Why build such a monster?" The human's eyes darkened. He stepped closer, and every alien soldier instinctively retreated. "Because the galaxy is cruel," he answered. "Because the void holds monsters that devour worlds, and because only humanity was willing to build nightmares to fight nightmares." The words sank like blades into the aliens' hearts. They had always thought themselves the dominant force in this sector. Their fleets were vast, their empires ancient. But this was something else. Humanity had not built a warship. They had built a weapon of terror, designed not just to win battles but to end them before they began. The Watcher of Truth shook violently. On the bridge, alarms blared. The flagship's systems were fully online now. Massive cannons sliding. From hidden bays, shield generators roaring to life, engines pulsing with power strong enough to tear apart moons. The AI's calm tone broke under the strain. "Warning. This vessel has activated. Estimated firepower exceeds entire collective. Fleets combined. Survival probability, less than 1%. On the flagship, the humans stepped free from their pods, one after another. Their movements were slow but deliberate, like predators testing their limbs after a long rest. Each one's eyes glowed faintly with a strange light, as though their bodies had been enhanced, reforged, to endure wars beyond imagination. One of the alien soldiers whispered, This is not a crew. This is an army." The lead human raised his hand. At once, the flagship responded. The walls pulsed with energy, and displays came alive across the chamber, showing visions of war long past. The aliens gasped as they saw fleets burning, planets shattered, enemies unrecognizable, creatures of shadow and fire beaten back only by humanity's monstrous weapons. "These were the wars you never knew," the human said. His voice carried grief, but also pride. "While your kind built empires of trade and treaties, we fought in the dark against things that would have devoured you all. This ship was one of many. It was our shield, our hammer, our nightmare, and our warning." Commander Tal's mandibles clicked nervously. "If you fought such enemies, then where are they now? And what happened to you?" The human's gaze turned colder. "We won. But victory has a cost. We became what we had to be. We turned ourselves into the very thing we feared. And when the war ended, the galaxy looked upon us with horror. They called us monsters. They swore never to let us rise again." The soldiers felt their blood run cold. A silence heavier than death filled the chamber. This was the truth. They had not found a relic of a forgotten species. They had found the prison of a predator. The human took another step forward. His voice dropped to a whisper, yet it echoed through every alien's mind. "Now you have woken. Us and the galaxy will remember what it means to fear humanity." Back on the Watcher of Truth, panic erupted. Officers shouted over each other, demanding retreat, demanding fire. But it was too late. The flagship's weapons locked onto them, systems humming with power so overwhelming that the void itself seemed to tremble. On the bridge, the AI spoke, the words no one wanted to hear. "We are targeted. Destruction imminent." And in that final moment before the nightmare truly began, Commander Tal understood the terrifying truth. The collective had believed themselves the masters of this galaxy, but they had only been children playing in the ruins of giants. The flagship trembled with life. Its long-dead corridors lit up like veins of fire, each glowing with the return of power that had slept for centuries. Engines that could shatter stars pulsed beneath the armored hull, and weapons that had once silenced galaxies stirred again, hungry and awake. On the Watcher of Truth, chaos erupted. Chaos. The crew screamed orders, tried to divert power, tried to flee. But every console, every screen showed the same truth. The human flagship had them locked in its sights. Escape was impossible. Commander Tal's voice shook for the first time in his career. "Shields to full, engines at maximum, move us away from that monster." The bridge rattled as the ship strained, engines roaring. Yet for every meter they gained, the flagship closed the distance without effort, as though the void itself bent to its will. The collective vessel was an insect before a predator. Inside the nightmare ship, the humans moved through the chamber with slow, steady grace. Their eyes burned with pale fire, their bodies carrying the weight of forgotten wars. The lead human placed his hand against the wall, and the ship responded instantly. Turrets unfolded, missile bays opened, and energy surged like a tidal wave. He looked at the terrified aliens and spoke a single word. "Observe." The Watcher of Truth never stood a chance. A single beam lanced from the flagship's cannons, cutting across the void like a blade of light. Shields collapsed in an instant, armor peeled away like paper, and the alien vessel screamed as if it were alive. The crew inside was thrown against walls. Sparks showered across consoles, and the entire ship cracked under the impossible pressure. In seconds, the proud scout ship became nothing more than drifting wreckage. Only fragments of hull, burning and broken, floated where once the Watcher of Truth had stood. On the flagship, the humans watched in silence. Not one of them flinched. This was not rage, nor cruelty. This was demonstration. The lead human turned back to the survivors on the boarding team, those still trembling in their armor, unable to believe what they had seen. "Your fleet will come," the human said softly. "They will seek to claim this ship. They will think they can control it. And when they do, they will learn the truth of humanity." The aliens shook their heads, voices breaking with panic. You cannot stand against the collective. We have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers." The human silenced them with a cold stare. "We have already stood against worse. Your numbers mean nothing. Your fleets are children's toys compared to what we faced. This vessel is only one of many. You awoke us, and now the others will awaken too." The soldiers felt the floor shift beneath them. The ship was moving. Engines roared with energy so raw it tore the darkness apart. Stars blurred outside the shattered hangar as the flagship aligned itself toward the heart of the galaxy. On every frequency across every channel, the ship broadcast its first true message. It was not coded, it was not hidden. It was loud, clear, and impossible to ignore. A single warning in perfect translation: humanity has returned. Across the sector, alien fleets intercepted the message. Panic spread like wildfire. Commanders barked orders, scientists whispered in horror, and politicians screamed for answers. Some believed it was a bluff. Some thought it was a ghost signal. But those who had seen the Watcher of Truth vanish knew better. In the chamber, Commander Tal and his surviving soldiers fell to their knees. They had thought themselves explorers, the first to uncover a relic of history. Instead, they had awoken the galaxy's greatest fear. The lead human stepped closer, his face unreadable, his voice heavy with both sorrow and steel. "You are not our enemy. Not yet. But your leaders will not understand. They will come for us. They will try to bury us again, and when they do, they will learn why even nightmares fear humanity." The boarding team's comms crackled one last time. It was the collective fleet command shouting for reports, demanding answers. But before Tal could respond, the humans raised their hands. The signal cut. The collective was deaf and blind. The massive flagship accelerated, vanishing into the void with a burst of power that split space itself. The aliens left behind could only watch, broken and trembling, as the ship disappeared into darkness. Silence fell once more. But it was not peace. It was the silence before war.